A final update video for the FDR-X3000. It's time to compare different kinds of mechanical stabilization to each other and see which one comes out on top. The Sony FDR-X3000 versus the DJI Osmo Pocket. Optical image stabilization is a technology that moves a camera lens around a little bit inside of its housing, and it's just darn easy to use. But the current king of mechanical stabilization is a well-balanced gimbal, and the Osmo Pocket just so happens to come equipped with a cute little gimbal of its own. Look at that. Look at that little thing. Look at how adorable that is. Which one is the best for making awesome online videos? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. We've spent this week running some 2019 update videos for the almost 3-year-old Sony FDR-X3000, and it's time to finish it off with the newest and most intriguing comparison of the bunch. And for me, that's finding out how it stands up against the much newer DJI Osmo Pocket. Both of these cameras have the ability to fulfill the same role in an online content creator's workflow and are both very well suited to be an on-the-go, outdoor, stabilized, that's really important if you've been watching this week, vlogging style camera. But there are 4 categories that I compare prospective cameras against because after using these kind of cameras on a darn near daily basis for almost 2 years now, I find that at the end of the day, that if a camera can satisfy these 4 categories, I'll probably be able to recommend it with a clear heart. And we call those 4, ready for it, the columns of quality. First up, video quality. Now, if you've kept up with this series or any of the other series I do, there will be lots of links in the description below. You'll know that video quality for me counts for both image and the audio a camera can produce. And there are some technical recording differences between the 2 cameras that we'll talk about here real quickly. The FDR-X3000 can record in up to 4K 30 frames per second, 1080p up to 120 frames per second, and 720p up to 240 frames per second. The Osmo Pocket can record up to 4K 60 frames per second, and it also does 1080p at 120 frames per second. Like we mentioned beforehand, one of the real big benefits of these 2 cameras is they both have mechanical stabilization methods. So it doesn't matter what the resolution's not that important for the camera, because whatever the resolution is, the camera will be able to stabilize it. Like, remember back to old GoPro cameras, they used to only be able to stabilize certain formats, but here it's everything. Physically, there are some pretty big differences that will matter a whole lot more to the cameras a little bit later in the video, but I do want to mention in the video quality category that the Sony has a 3.5mm audio jack built straight into the camera body itself. That's amazing. While the Osmo Pocket doesn't have anything like that. I have been able to find some third-party adapter options, which who knows how well they work, right? I mean, third-party is always great. Wink. But there still hasn't been an official audio adapter released that I could find through a cursory Google search. When it comes to image quality and audio quality, I actually think both cameras do fine when you consider straight up in-camera recording quality. I do prefer the internal audio recording of the Sony FDR-X3000 over the Osmo Pocket, but the Osmo Pocket isn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Since the firmware updates, it's gotten much better. There are a few major image differences between the 2 cameras though. First up is the field of view. In 4K, the Sony is at its widest setting, which is the equivalent to a 17mm lens on a full frame camera. And that's pretty darn wide. The Osmo Pocket, on the other hand, is around a 28mm lens on a full frame camera, which is much tighter. Now, those 2 numbers may not sound like a lot, but that is a huge difference. The Sony will always have a huge field of view, and if you are vlogging or trying to do anything close to the camera, this will have a huge advantage. The Osmo Pocket, again, I mean, it has decently fine image quality, but that close crop is pretty rough, especially if you're gonna be like trying to film yourself with the camera with a normal human arm. I mean, my arms are only so long. And this is exacerbated by another problem that we'll talk about regarding the physical construction of both cameras, but the Osmo Pocket is missing any kind of mounting option. I hate, just have a tripod mount, right? You can put it right there. See the charging? Right next to it. If you wanted to get the camera further away to increase the field of view on a certain subject, that is a huge hindrance. Another big difference between the 2 cameras is the Osmo Pocket has a depth of field, so there is an in focus and an out of focus area in the video, whereas everything in the Sony video will be in focus. This is not, I mean, there's a depth of field right now, but in the Sony camera, everything's in focus. I don't want to say that this is a good or bad thing anymore because DJI very recently released a firmware update making their autofocus much better and actually usable now. Like, I did not use it beforehand. I just really couldn't even use the Osmo Pocket that much beforehand. But now, it's actually pretty functional. So you shouldn't have very many issues using the cameras missing your face or deciding to focus just all over the place like we saw a few weeks ago. But don't take my word for it. Let's hop outside to put all of this to the test in our video/vlogging test.
Welcome to the vlogging test of the Sony FDR-X3000 and the DJI Osmo Pocket. I actually, I feel like these two cameras are more similar. They'd be used for more similar purposes than, say, maybe a GoPro, because a GoPro is a straight action camera, whereas the Sony FDR kind of has its foot in both worlds with that audio in on the back. So let's turn them on. Let's get them started. This is the Osmo Pocket running its latest firmware that just came out a couple of days ago. Okay, ready, record, vlogging test begin. Whoa. Okay, so this is the vlogging test of the Sony FDR-X3000 and the DJI Osmo Pocket. Now, I do have the DJI Osmo Pocket with the latest firmware that should be fixing the autofocus problems that I was complaining about before, and should be fixing an awful lot of stuff about the camera. Now, the Osmo Pocket does have that built-in gimbal, but the FDR-X3000 has really good optical image stabilization. So I imagine both cameras are going to be pretty darn... Whoa, I just tripped on something. So I imagine both cameras, except when I'm tripping over stuff, should be pretty darn stable. Can we see each other? There's the two cameras. Woo! But yeah, I actually really like the video quality out of both of these. My big complaint about the Osmo Pocket even now is just, it's really tight to try to make it a vlogging camera. They're both set to 4K 30, and when the FDR-X3000 is set to 4K 30, it gets its wide view, so I assume there's way more in frame than on the Osmo Pocket. The Osmo Pocket, when we're doing this though, does have that front-facing screen, so I can make sure that everything is framed about as properly as possible, but it doesn't actually show you the full image on this little screen because it's a little box, but it's recording in, widescreen 16:9, so I don't actually get the whole thing right now from what I'm seeing. So this is the image quality, and this is the audio quality coming out of both cameras. This is the audio coming out of the Sony FDR-X3000, audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3, and this is the audio coming out of the DJI Osmo Pocket, audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3. It's actually heavier than I thought it would be. Just holding stuff out, like straight out like this, no matter what it is, makes my old man shoulders start to hurt. Okay, this has been the vlogging test of the two cameras. Back to the video.
And we're back. So again, both look perfectly fine and have really good image and audio straight in camera. But if you need the widest field of view, or you need an external audio jack, well then, the Sony's gonna win in the video quality department, because it has both of those things. Image quality is great and all, but how easy / difficult is it to set the camera up to get those sweet pixels? Well, it depends. Like we've now said twice this week. We've said it twice because it bears repeating. The FDR-X3000 isn't the most user-friendly experience. You've got to work your way through some pretty rough menus and options to get anything done, and it's really unfortunate how much of the awesomeness that is the X3000 grinds to a halt when you've actually got to mess with the menu system. Like, that sucks. I really wish it was better. I hope the X4000, if that's a thing, I hope you'll have just like a touchscreen. The Osmo Pocket, on the other hand, does have a little LCD touchscreen on the front, which is usable, but it's kind of small, and switching through the menus can be kind of a pain. But I will say another big benefit of the new firmware is you can now change the Pro settings of the Osmo Pocket from the screen. You used to have to plug your phone into it to get that functionality. Now you can do it from the screen, which is a huge benefit. If you connect it to a phone, it's really easy to change up all of the settings, and this little phone connector port is a pretty ingenious way to make the connection easy. Now, I personally don't ever really use this that much. I want the Osmo Pocket to be the smallest form factor possible because that's what, that's the whole purpose of the Osmo Pocket to me. But it is really easy to connect your phone to it if you need to. The Osmo Pocket easily wins this category, but what really matters is how easy the camera is to function after you hit record.
But how easy is it in business time? So business time is how easy is it to get the footage you want out of a camera after you hit record. You could have all day to set up the camera, but once you hit record, you got to get that usable footage, right? And so how do these cameras compare against each other after you hit record?
So it's gonna be like what does your philosophy on cameras involve? Like, so as we mentioned during the vlogging test, the DJI Osmo Pocket does have that front-facing screen. So if you're using it to record yourself, you will be able to see what's going on as you're using it, which is super useful. However, it's a really tight image and you're only gonna see like a box. You're not gonna see the full image, because if you're recording on like a widescreen, like you're making YouTube videos and you're recording 16:9, you're not gonna see the whole image, which, you know, kind of stinks. However, the Sony FDR, you know, you're not gonna have any kind of screen to see, but it's gonna be wide enough that it's not gonna matter, and everything's still gonna be in focus. I have been more impressed with the focusing on the Osmo Pocket since the new firmware came out, but you don't have to worry about focusing at all, I mean, in any way, shape, or form with the FDR-X3000. And much like the GoPro we talked about earlier in the week, you have to buy an additional accessory for the Osmo Pocket to plug in a microphone. On this, it's just built into the body. I wish every camera company just released their cameras with audio jacks built into it. Like, audio is so important to video, like it's more important than the image quality. So why wouldn't you just build in the microphone adapter or jack or however you want to get me a microphone, get it, but build it into the body of the camera itself. Like, it's just so much more useful. So this will just, after you hit record, it's dead easy. You don't have to worry about everything. Everything will be in focus. Everything will be in your shot, so long as you're like roughly pointing it at you, and you can plug in like a professional level microphone that we saw on Monday without any big deal. The Osmo Pocket, I mean, it's also easy to use after you hit record, but you know, the FDR, much like the Canon M50, there's not much that's easier to use than the Sony FDR-X3000. It's like the easiest action camera to use. Okay, back to the video.
Back again. Video quality, ease of use, I mean, those are really important, but what's also important is, does the ecosystem allow you to make these cameras better than they initially are? I mean, they're both pretty great straight out of the box, but can they be better? English. I'm going to consider what is currently shipping today as the basis for the comparison, and not what is planned, because there are a lot of awesome accessories for the Osmo Pocket on the horizon. But who actually knows when they're going to come out? If you know, leave a comment below, because there are some currently shipping now, but there are a whole bunch on their little like diagram that I would love to get a hold of, but who knows when. For straight physical bodies, I have to give it to the Sony. Neither of these cameras are waterproof, so I can't think of any good reason to not have a tripod mount built into it, and thankfully the Sony has a 1/4-inch tripod mount right here on the bottom. The Osmo Pocket has nothing, nor does it have any mounting options included in the box. Sad face. Like, that's a crusade of mine. Just companies have mounting options in the box. But when it comes to other accessories, I think I'm gonna give it to the Osmo Pocket. Mainly because while the body itself already has a better image than I think the Sony does, but these accessories can take it even farther by allowing you a few key benefits, such as controlling the gimbal from a distance and giving some added functionality. Like, it takes something that's already good and makes it better, and that's a win in my book. I love having wins. But at the end of the week, so what, right? So which of these two cameras would I recommend for the online content creator? Well, what's more difficult about this one than it was about the GoPro is I think these have different uses for different people. I wouldn't recommend either of them as an action camera, because that realm is well and truly won by GoPro at this point until something new comes out. As a straight up vlogging camera, I'd probably continue to recommend the Sony. It's got the wider field of view, better audio options, and it's just a tiny little thing that you don't have to worry about getting good enough video quality out of. It works really well for what it is. But the Osmo Pocket does have some serious functionality, and having that gimbal that can articulate and move around, that's a big benefit. And I do think the better image quality comes out of the Osmo Pocket. It can give you more if you are willing to work with a gimbal and that tighter field of view. These are different cameras that can serve the same functionality, but I would recommend them differently depending on your requirement. Wow, thanks Everyday Dad for the non-answer. Thanks for watching.